So welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have Deborah Honig, who is the Chief Customer Officer at Samsung UK and Ireland. Hello, Deborah. How are you doing?
Great, Adrian. Thanks for having me on the show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm splendid, thank you. Now, for people obviously will be familiar with Samsung for all sorts of different reasons, but they might not be familiar with you. So I wonder if you could tell me a little bit about you and a bit about the work that you do.
Well, I am at Samsung as the Chief Customer Officer, and that work involves everything that talks about bringing our amazing technology to life for our customers here in the UK and Ireland, from marketing aspects to the experience touch points and to a lot of the integrated work we do with partners around the country.
Perfect. Now, Chief Customer Officer at Samsung is quite a big deal because it's actually, I think you're one of the first ever Chief Customer Officers at Samsung, and you've been there now for kind of just over 2 years, coming on 3 years now. I think that's about right.
That's correct. Absolutely.
Now, I understand, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to kind of talk to you, is because a lot of times we kind of talk about, people that are in this sort of service and experience sort of space that maybe to do with technology, or they might be kind of outsourced providers or whatever, or even just brands doing their own thing. But you're an interesting case, or Samsung is an interesting case, because it's always been led by innovation, and innovation led to focus around products. But now you're moving it into, my understanding is moving it into more of a service-led experience, sort of like play, as it were. And I wanted to understand, because in the power ones, apparently that's called servitization. And so I wanted to understand, just give me a bit of a flavor of what you've gone about in order to achieve that sort of servitization and move from being product-led and innovation led to being more service focused, and what some of the stages you've gone through and how's it going, where you are in the process, because I just think it's an interesting angle, really, because that many of the talk right now is about software, but it sort of negates the fact that we use stuff, right? And how that stuff is getting smarter, and how we need to sort of support it and things. And so I was really interested to hear from you about kind of some of the steps that Samsung has gone through, and you've helped them go through, to move from being this product led to being kind of more a service oriented sort of organization.
Adrian, it's a great question. Samsung is still a fantastic, innovative R&D led company in one sense.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing is complementing that amazing power to innovate, use technology to break through all kinds of barriers in capability of tech to support us, and really think about then how do we actually bring that from a product, both a single product experience, into a more connected experience,
right,
which is enabled by some of the innovation that is happening. But also, as we've reached this point where the reality is most people have a lot of technology in their lives and different technology in their lives, how do we actually think about bringing more value to the customer? And in so doing, as a brand, being more valuable to that customer and have more customer loyalty as a result. And that really starts to come from thinking about how do we solve everyday challenges for our customers and needs, wants in their day-to-day, and then working backwards from that into our products, how they work individually, how they work together, and helping change the communication from techs and specs to really benefit outcomes that consumers actually care about more than the techs and specs. Now, the techs and specs will always be important because they help us deliver that, but it's changing the focus both of our communication, but also even sometimes of our tech and development priorities, certainly more and more now, about what matters more in time. And so I think that's the evolution. And then in terms of roles, so as the Chief Customer Officer here in the UK and Ireland, and a lot of our audience, will have those roles. My role is to make sure that the UK and the UK and Ireland customers are represented in that conversation.
Okay.
And that we're translating that into a really helpful context for the lived reality of people here in the UK. Might be quite different from those in Korea or in America.
Indeed.
And that also means we move on to working with things like partnerships that are relevant to our local customers. So you might find, as an example, like we want a genuine benefit to customers is to helping them reduce their energy bill. So
Yeah.
you wouldn't expect a company like us to have an energy tariff, but we've just launched one in partnership with BG, a weekend saver to reduce your energy on weekends if you're a Samsung customer.
Okay.
And that integrates with our amazingly energy efficient products, but it takes both to be able to deliver a lower energy bill, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right. And so we start thinking about expanding from just what we're doing in a single product to make it amazingly valuable to how it connects and to how we add value on top of that with the partnerships and the people we work. I think one other interesting insight that we've built in to both what we're bringing to market, but how we're helping people is this idea of decision overload and fatigue. So we know, for example, here in the UK, that over half of our population found it was like the small everyday chores and tasks that they needed to get done that were causing them the most stress.
Right.
And in fact, by 11 a.m., most of us feel mentally exhausted. You think about the number of things you do from the time you get up to whether it's washing your clothes and walking the dog to figuring out if there's anything in the fridge that you're going to need for dinner to locking the house down, closing all the lights, making sure the energy's turned down if you haven't automated it, all these things to get yourself to your first meeting and beyond, and you're already exhausted. Have you made a healthy choice for breakfast? Has that affected your energy scores? You think about the number of things that makes me laugh that you could think about if you read all these documents or listen to all these podcasts about how to have the perfect life, right? And I'm already exhausted. And so what we're trying to do is figure out how to take that lived reality and use our products and our suite of products to just make that easier, right?
And what has been the journey to that? Because that's quite from an engagement and sort of positioning sort of perspective. And that's quite a big shift from being an organization which is, as you say, Samsung's been around for decades and has always been known for having really strong, innovative, market leading kind of products. And so has that been a big sort of mindset shift? And if so, kind of are you done? Is it cool? Or where are you at on the journey?
Look, I have to give up. I've only been with the company for just over 2 years, but I certainly see the architecture of this in the making for a long time. But as a really conservative and humble company, I would say, we're only at a point we feel like that we're speaking and able to communicate it because the level of benefit has reached a different height.
Right.
And so you think about the fact that our product ecosystem spans your home and outside of your home, from domestic appliances to audio, visual, and TV to mobile. So we can connect what you think is truly your day-to-day. That's not really by mistake, I would imagine, in the design of the products we've developed and the products we've expanded to. How can we actually serve more of that day-to-day need? That AI, we've been working in AI for over a decade, and our big part of the advances in what we're able to do now are because we've put AI in a really useful way onto our whole product suite, which means our products now have a new level of intelligence, allowing them to learn and adapt individually, but also as a connected ecosystem so that we can now deliver different benefits. And all those things have sort of been built up over time with a huge, I'd say, step change in 2024 when we announced, the first AI phone that kicked off and moved AI into the rest of our product suite. But now also as we build on that and really get that integrated offering, that we can now start to really tell the story because the benefits are here today, right? They're not a future imagined scenario anymore. And you don't have to have everything to get a lot of these benefits already. You can have a few products, because we have an open ecosystem, we have a platform called SmartThings. We can actually help you enable some of these realities really easily today with the few products you have, sometimes add a TP link and, connect them to something that wasn't smart, make it smarter and connect it to an ecosystem to start doing things like automatically opening your house up in the morning or turning it down at night, managing your lights and energy, your security.
Yeah, I mean, because I wanted to ask about kind of that because you talk about building it into the first AI powered phone or phone with kind of AI in it, and then it's been infused into your other kind of products. But you say you've also been using it in the past, and I imagine that's in the background, kind of in the past, and you were using it for optimization and efficiency and those type of things. But now I guess it's moving forward into that sort of consumer kind of interface that so people are starting to. I guess my question would be is that you know I mean, everybody's talking about kind of AI, and I get slightly bored when people talk about AI first and this, that. And I'm like going, yeah, well, what about customer first or
Yeah.
outcome first or all that sort of things? And so my question would be, because it sometimes also feels like people are just, it becomes like the latest thing that people are just jumping on. So I wanted to understand kind of specifically, like the principles that you're using to infuse kind of artificial intelligence into your products. I mean, what is it designed sort of to do? How is it helping kind of people? And also kind of what's the reaction from customers kind of been like? Because I guess that's the thing. Is like there's all this stuff going out, and then you're like going, they kind of the true test is if people use it and feel like they're getting value out of it, surely.
Absolutely. And I think as I started, I think AI has enabled us to do things.
Right.
AI for AI's sake or tech for tech's sake has never been a direction we take. We actually have these general design principles which apply. AI would be included. AI is just a tech we use to
Yep.
deliver the outcomes. And they've evolved over time, but they're still at the heart of them the same, core, which is making sure that innovation is actually adding a real tangible benefit to the intended use and then the secondary use, right? So, we're not going to add bells and whistles to a washing machine that doesn't deliver first the core function, which is helping you wash your clothes easier, better, less energy, less thought.
Yeah.
Those are all good things. And from a style standpoint, making sure that like fits into your aesthetics in your home as well. And from a sustainability perspective, always making sure we're making steps forward to do better by the planet. So those things all still fit into, the way we think about design. AI is an enabler in it to different things that we can do. And that's how we think about them.
I guess the thing that I'm kind of
Trying to get to.
The primary thing I'm trying to get to is, the technology is great, right? And it's super interesting, but I guess it's a bit like if you've been around long enough, you'll kind of remember the sort of the last .com kind of boom.
Yep.
And the thing that struck me about that sort of time is that there's a difference between what is possibly going to happen and what is probably going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the probably bit is like people designed the things that succeeded were people that designed stuff that people went, oh, that's cool, and it will continue to be cool because it works. And that's where I'm thinking that with this the AI sort of stuff is a bit like going,
Of course, yeah, we'll keep using it because, yeah. So I think that's why if I go back to that, not to repeat, but I feel like we think about it. I think the customer back version of this is really where I started, which is in the lived reality of people today. There is so much happening, and there's a huge burden of things that people would say have to be done in a given day. So we start with how do we use both our individual products, but also how do we use that connected technology enhanced by AI, because AI learns and adapts and integrates your information in a way we couldn't do before, to make that easier and more possible, right? So to take some of the weight of that, some of the simplicity of that out, to start with, just giving people more time and headspace back,
right,
for doing the other things they want to do, because it starts with that on our foundation. And then we move into, it can also do some amazing things for you on the creativity side, right? So we really lean into, because we know for our customers, creativity is a huge source of enjoyment, but also livelihoods, employment, other things that they do with that. So how do we because we have mobile phones, for example, and we have multiple screens, if you have a TV, monitor, desktop, how do we leverage AI to enhance what they can do creatively? So we have, very simple things like sketch to image, which I use with my son, which you could take small drawings and create all really professional, interesting art with, and that inspires him and us to do more, to actual generative edit where you're trying to take photos, whether it's professional or for your Christmas holiday, and remove people and get a good shot. All those things that people spend a lot of time doing and really get enjoyment from. Okay, we're using AI to enhance that, to take it to another place, which is something like the burden of care. So we know over 6 million people in the UK are looking after people in an unpaid capacity. How do we create and use now this system that we have between SmartThings and our products, we call it SmartThings Home Care, and it offers you the ability to do everything from sensing, detecting, scheduling, all these types of services that really help people give the people they're caring for some independence, but also allow them to care for it without debilitating their lives, their ability to care. So we can move into very different territories with the same set of capabilities that we've now delivered. Truly, some of it enabled by AI and AI's ability to sense, detect, adapt on top of our products and capabilities. So I think that's where, for us, AI has been a real enhancement of a customer-centric mission rather than AI for AI's sake.
Yeah.
And I think our desire to talk about AI is more from a transparency perspective, and also so that people understand what we're using it for and what they can get out of having that additional capability in the product and in the technology.
And is that the are you doing that because, I mean, there's also a lot of news and talk and discussion around trust and the use of kind of AI, and people are like, well, it's kind of new and we don't know what it's going to do with our data, and we're not quite sure how it's going to impact kind of jobs but it also feels, really exciting and interesting and things, and many people are kind of torn by it, and that's both. It's kind of, in some places, some people are saying it's hindering kind of adoption. I mean, so what's been your approach to trying to, I guess, build that trust and to try and encourage adoption? Because it feels like it's an increasingly real thing for many people.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point. And I think we start internally making sure that we have a aligned view that we can live by on how we develop and use it. So we have, the ethical principles internally called fairness, accountability, transparency, and we live by those in our design and how we talk about it. But I think it also moves into thinking about some of the areas where people rightly are thinking about AI and have concerns, and having a point of view on them that we feel like builds trust and is a reflection of what people want. And so that starts with this concept of AI for all. So again, technology could be quite polarizing in its outcomes in terms of who it serves, and that everyone has access to it. And so for us, it's really about making sure that AI is more democratized through our product portfolio, not just at the top, going down through the price points. It means using it as much for the fully abled as to those people who have different accessibility challenges. And AI is fantastic for that in a number of ways, audio to voice, audio issues to vision issues, to being able to personalize the experience by knowing who's using it in the household. So it really can help us on some of those areas. And then we also then go AI as a choice. I think we started to talk about that before, being really transparent when we're using AI features, allowing you to opt in. So things like your Now Brief or Health Assist features on our phones and wearables, like you have a choice. It tells you how the data is processing. Actually, when you're setting them up, it asks you to make those choices and does them in as simplistic a way as possible. to security, right? And data privacy, which is a huge topic, right? And so the way we approach it is we've used Samsung Knox. We've built this amazing system that's trusted by militaries and government, and deployed it to a personal level. So we've got a vault that helps you keep your information safe. We allow you to choose whether you're going to only use on-device processing of AI capabilities or cloud, and even still everything is encrypted. So we're just building in those like sets of options, and we're also really working on making sure that we can deliver more and more in a individual on-device way over time, which for those people who don't want their data going to a cloud, they still get benefit.
Yeah.
So we've addressed it in those ways. And then I'd say, importantly, this conversation we're having about how do we, in my role, how do we communicate? I think it's also about helping people see what we're doing with it very transparently, and the benefits that we think it delivers, understanding what they're looking for, and letting them then conclude.
Yeah.
Is it adding the value? And that's on us to make sure it is, when we use it, adding the value that they think is what they'd expect to get out of a new tech innovation.
Yeah, because it strikes me that there's so much momentum in the market right now about people talking about AI, and it's it's infusing all software across our personal lives and our business lives, and across the piece, and it's almost a bit like people are getting carried away. Not getting carried away, but getting swept along. Many brands are getting swept along, and sometimes I feel like consumer concerns or customer concerns aren't necessarily. I mean, I'm not saying they're being ignored, but sometimes I don't think they're necessarily being communicated to as well as they might, if you know what I mean. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody in particular. I just think it's one of those kind of things. I think the pace of change and innovation is such that you can't do everything, and you will try and prioritize. So it's really heartening to actually hear that you're kind of like walking people kind of through this sort of stuff and allowing them to make kind of choices. And it's not just like, it's this or nothing. You've got a set of products. You go like, they're great products. They work really well, and you can zhuzh them up with some AI, or you can just have them as great products, just as themselves, and it's like completely up to you. And I guess that's for me that's the interesting thing, because again, it's about choice, right? And it's also about the fact that you're not abandoning your kind of mission of being a company that makes great innovative kind of products that are that work in of themselves, and don't have to rely on operating kind of software that's powered by AI to get the best out of them, because actually they're just great products. They're great physical products in of themselves. And so I think that's really heartening to hear.
And so to your point, I think also just making sure we're not having a general conversation with our customers about AI, and having a specific one. So in the context of someone buying a TV, right? You say, well, would you like a TV that auto adjusts to the noise level behind you in the room so that you can hear better? If your grandkids run in behind you, or your kids or your dog, and you're listening to an important part of a movie or a news clip, well, most people would say, yeah, that sounds great. I certainly, as I feel like my hearing's going, I would love that. It auto adjusts, or the light and the picture auto adjusts because all of a sudden, the lights change behind me, or in the room that someone else wants it really dim, and and the way it's been that's some of the ways that AI is being used to make the purchase you made and that your viewing experience amazing. And people, in that context, we're talking about, we're going to start with, how do we make that experience like in the TV context?
Yeah.
And then you work back and go, and it's Wi-Fi connected in a hub. It can now be the hub of your home when the screen's off, or the art hub. But if someone's, at the door, it can pop up on your TV. Or if you guys want to talk about the schedule for today, you can put your Now Brief and calendar up there so everyone can see it and debate whether you can do the 6 things you planned.
Right.
That's the conversation we need to have. And then you go, oh, how do we do it? Sort of the secondary one. And you're right. And I think sometimes we end up too much, I think, as a set of communicators or Marcom people talking and tech companies, we can talk too much initially about the AI, and we need to be transparent and talk about it. But actually, we need to start with, here's the feature or the benefit, more or less, that I would say, and work back into it. How are we using it? And do you want that?
Indeed. And the other thing I wanted to circle back on is the idea that you talked about democratizing AI. So it's not just a premium feature; it's actually kind of infused throughout your kind of products, and I think that's good, because actually, you also mentioned earlier about the lived reality of kind of people, and the lived reality of kind of people also for many people right now is that their cost of living is still quite high, and and you also mentioned this that your products don't exist in a vacuum, and they managed to mention this energy ecosystem and this deal with this partnership with British Gas. And I wanted to better understand how the products and the AI and the partnerships are speaking to that broader, if you like, living challenge around managing budgets. Dynamically. And how's that working? What's been the impact of some of that sort of stuff?
I think that we've had to, first of all, get a bit sharper on understanding what is it that will make the most difference to people in that equation that we can affect, right? Mm-hmm. So that starts with being just sharper on customer insights to work back, which we know, for example, that's how we've learned energy. And it sounds obvious, but energy remains kind of one of the key priorities. Mm-hmm. And so we as a business here decide we will focus on that, right? And we'll focus on that not just in our single product, but in everything we can do to support a customer having a better outcome when it comes to energy. And so we took that from, okay, let's make sure we bring and explain the best product benefits that we have to support that. Let's make sure we help people. We keep adding services to our SmartThings free platform that includes how do you do AI energy mode and optimization and auto scheduling, things that will help people do that in an easier way. Because we've also, as we said, discovered people are extremely busy and it needs to be easy in order to reduce their burden, and then extend it out into partnerships. So energy is one example. We know people are extremely worried about their health in both a positive and a general sense as the population ages. So that's why we've then focused on extending it from making sure our devices, like our wearables, certainly are playing a bigger role in prevention and detection, but also we've formed partnerships. An example is one that we announced recently called Zelf, which basically connects people through that to a broad network of getting access to the right health solutions, even care, doctors, appointments, et cetera, that might be warranted. So we're taking the idea, or the not the idea, I'd say, we're leveraging the insight about what people care about, ensuring our products are developing along that lines, but ensuring that we extend that ecosystem, both are in our own system across our devices, so that your ring, your watch, everything can build on each other, and then bring it out into partners that can deliver an even better benefit. And so that's kind of one of the ways that we're really thinking about that. I think the other way is, again, making sure when we say we deliver value, people are getting value beyond a sticker price. So, I kind of think about that as longevity, the quality of the product, making sure that product, for example, will get software upgrades as our advancements come through software, not to them over the next years. Of course, we always have hardware improvements, but you're not going to buy a new piece of tech. So the software that becomes your way to make that product continue to enhance. Also to make sure the quality of it, I always have this saying of buy cheap, buy twice, so again, because we're thinking about how do we make sure products that endure longer are delivered at the end point. And then really, again, allowing people to be able to customize their own experience with our products. Not everybody has the same reality in their life, in their home life, their home work life, their setup, how many people they have that they're living and caring for, as we said. So also being able to allow people to get more value by being able to customize how they use it so that it suits their lives. And I think those are the ways that we've really focused on, in a cost of living crisis or an increasing concern about how to pay for things, make sure what they buy adds the most value to them, can live a long time in their life because it will continue to evolve,
Mm-hmm.
and can be used for multiple very personalized purposes, not just one. And so I think that's a big part of it.
Cool. And so you seem to have come a long way. So what's next for Samsung and this move towards service-led experiences? I mean, what can we expect? Can we expect a Samsung house?
Well, I think, as we said, I think one thing I was like, trust is so key in this. So I know it sounds funny. It's less about the service, but like it's never one and done.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we have a lot to continue. We've done a lot, but I think we will continue this journey of refining the way that both we communicate, but also that we deliver this ecosystem to people. And that includes our open ecosystem and the support we give to that, right? Recognizing people don't just have one brand or one piece of tech in their life. Mm-hmm. So I think we are continuing down that path, investing heavily in making sure that we're advancing what we're capable of, we're communicating and getting hands-on and actually getting out with consumers to help them actually be able to do it, and making it easier, making it happen more seamlessly if they'd like it. So out of the box, is it just easier to get the benefit, to set things up? And so those are all areas we'll continue to lean in on. And then I think, the additional thing will be actually, it's just as the capability, as the capability to be more, I'd say, I'll use some terms and then we'll simplify them, right? Multimodal, and it grows, and which really means to be able to do multiple things in context, right? So to know like a human being more, that you've got certain things happening and you've asked a series of questions that all relate to each other, to actually be able to do that deliver on that. That's how AI will continue to advance on the tools that we already put out there. And that just means they'll become more and more helpful, right? Yeah. They'll be more and more, our technology will be more and more an assistant, your companion in whatever it is you're doing in your day-to-day and striving to achieve in your life. And that's really exciting for us, because ultimately, if we can empower our customers to do whatever they want, right? Whatever's possible, and do more. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, okay, we want to remove tasks and remove things with AI, and that's what they're worried about. And I think our approach is we want to remove and simplify the things that are holding you back from doing all the other things that you think are infinitely more important to what defines you as a human and how you want to spend your time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal we're on, right? And so we'll continue to use tech in that quest.
Nice.
Lofty, but I honestly, I think it's a really, I see it every day in the work that we're doing. And I think we'll continue to point our tech development and our service development in that direction, and the partnerships that we form, which you'll see more of over the coming months, to really bring the full value of benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it seems to me that there's a number of different components there that, you've got great products with, really useful software wrappers around them, but those products don't sit in a vacuum, and so you have to have an open architecture, an open kind of open way of thinking about that, and how they interact with with their neighbors, as it were. And then how do you extend that through kind of partnerships, kind of beyond the home into sort of, so they can allow you to plug into sort of other, other services. And so, yeah, I can see that, how that picture is all going to play in, but it's also, it's not a plug and play thing. It's almost like configure your own home type of idea.
And make it easier, right? Make it so much easier to do that, because you kind of could do parts of that in the past, but it was, you had to be pretty tech savvy, pretty devoted to the cause.
Yeah.
As I'd say, you had to put a lot of work in to get that out.
Mm-hmm.
And that just meant it wasn't accessible for a lot of people. It was too high a barrier. Right?
Yeah, no, but I see that's becoming kind of getting closer and closer as things become easier to connect and things become easier to, to use and to manage and stuff. So that, that sounds great. So, it's an interesting and exciting sort of journey that you're on. And I guess I was just thinking about that might be a nice way to kind of bring it to the end, but I just thought before I do that, before I ask you some quick fire questions, is there anything else that you think that we've missed that you wanted to highlight before we get into some quick fire questions?
I mean, we touched on it just briefly, which is this, you're never one and done is what I'd like to say. I think this is just, if you truly are putting the customer in the heart and in their lived reality, that will evolve, which means we will have to just keep raising the bar for how we serve that need and keep evolving. So I don't think, we'll be able to declare we've landed on the moon type accomplishment. So, I mean, which is both, satisfying and frustrating in one sense, as someone who's leading that customer charge. So I'd say that, and, and I do think keeping, not getting wrapped up, as you say, in, the next tech hype for the tech hype's sake. It's like just really being clear that if it's not enhancing the value we add to a customer's lives in a way that they can understand and use it fairly easily, we shouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. Like fundamentally. And that's a really hard discipline to keep. Because as you said, you can quite quickly get into a world in AI or in any tech where you go, but isn't it amazing? We can do this, right? Yeah. Which I have to say, and who cares? Like,
right.
Why, right? Like, why is that important? And if that why is not clear and not important enough in the hierarchy of things that matter to customers today, it's not really worth doing, right? And so that I'd say that's my last thing. That discipline is sort of part of my role, part of the drumbeat that we have to keep having. And it's not just saying put the customer in the center, but like, what is their lived reality and what is it that we're doing? Is what we're doing moving the needle for them? And then, secondly, of course, we're a business. So does it make commercial sense? But that's a second question, because it can make commercial sense and not move the needle. And then soon after, it won't make commercial sense, right?
Yeah.
I think it does on paper, right? But and as a customer-centric person who's driven their business life on that kind of concept, keeping that discipline is one of the hardest, I think, parts of the role.
And I think that must be a huge challenge, given when you're working in a company that has been known for product innovation for decades, and the people are like, oh, look at the cool thing that we made, and you're like going, and yeah, that's cool, but so what? Why does it matter? It's like, keep making cool things, and it's a little bit like you will hit the target, you'll hit something that is both interesting to consumers and interesting to the kind of the business, and kind of is sustainable and blah blah blah, all these different sort of things. You'll hit on the things that matter by scrutinizing kind of like those things and keeping kind of those, does it matter? Does it move the needle? Kind of at the heart of your thinking. So yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah, but I recognize when you're in an environment where you're fundamentally kind of not fundamentally changing, but you're adding to that organizational kind of culture, then that's going to be it never ends. I think is the conclusion. It never ends. So, a few quickfire questions to finish up. So, I always like to boil things down, Deborah, to And the way I've been doing that is to ask people to complete this sentence. And the sentence is, if you want to improve your customer experience, Deborah says, do this, ... Complete that sentence.
I think I go back to a bit our conversation, which would be, if it's not improving something of value for the customer that the customer values, you can't do it. That's where you have to start.
Okay, perfect.
Work back from there. Sorry if that wasn't a...
No, that's simple. That's simple enough. It's like, if it doesn't deliver value to the customer, then stop.
Yeah. End of story.
So my second question is, and this has to be a punk one because it's a Punk CX podcast, is that what company or brand do you think takes a more punk approach to customer experience, and why?
I think there are a few, not always consistently, but things that come to mind. I think, punk CX, from my interpretation, means refusing a default setting, right? So that's the kind of challenging and taking, challenging the norms of what it means to deliver and staying in tune with a customer's lived reality and evolving life. And so I take a company like Bodyform, which, challenged convention around periods and everything from how we communicate them, swapped fake blue to red, moved from also just tackling the occasion to tackling the system. And I mean, this affects every woman in the world. Right? So those changes changed the conversation, changed also the innovation in the rest of the industry and the communication. And I think as a company, they continue to think about, how do you put the customer, in this case, which is a woman with their lived reality of a menstrual cycle, how do you really serve that? Not just with the product, but with the conversation and with all the other things that start to go around it. So I think they're a great example of that.
I love that example because you're right. It's like this menstruation is something that affects 50% of the population, and pushing it. It's something that people like brands like Bodyform have gone, why are we not talking about this? Because it affects everybody. It affects women, but it also affects everybody that they live with as well. And so putting it right in the center of the conversation, because actually we can help women, but also help everybody else understand more about kind of what happens, and it not being a taboo subject or a taboo thing to think about or talk about or try and understand. Then you go like, I'm all for that. Breaking taboos.
And then they've accomplished, both Bodyform and Essity. They're probably the highest awareness brand now in that area.
Yeah.
Not accomplished by traditional means of just buying, more share of voice and constantly putting it out there in that sense. So they've accomplished the business goal as well, right? So which is great. And then, I think, of course, Lego is another great example. It's probably a overused example, but I think we all admire what they've done over the last 10 years with consistently putting creativity in play at the heart of what the company is about and why people should buy it, and not just children, but also adults, and kind of tapping into being able to do that for both customer segments, right? And so I think they've done that both through their inviting people and creating spaces for people to be creative, to the fact that every touch point has an opportunity to play and be creative, and just really drive that ethos through it. So
I mean, I think I also admire the Lego as well, because I think that they recognizes that we're storytellers, regardless of our age. That's how we navigate the world, through the stories that we tell ourselves and others about others and ourselves and the world, and so on and so forth, and that never leaves us. And so to tap into that is been brilliant. But final question is, it's a bit of a statement of the obvious, but the world's a weird place right now. And, I think part of that anxiety you talked about earlier on, or that kind of like feeling a bit worn out when you get to 11 o'clock because you've actually done all your kind of like, looked at your emails and you scrolled the news and everything else. There's a lot of heavy stuff in the news. There's a lot of doom scrolling going on. I wish sometimes the news would give themselves a day off and just can tell good news stories, and what the impact on world health would be on that.
Let's
But-
lobby for that, shall we?
Yeah, no, I think that would be a good thing.
Tuesday. No one's allowed to tell anything but good news on Monday.
Yeah. So what I've been doing at the end is given that environment that there is a lot of doom scrolling around, I've been asking people to share with me a good news story, to tell me something that they've seen over the last week or so that you thought was just interesting, was positive, exciting, just made you smile.
I have two levels of that. So one would be, obviously we had the budget that just went, so it feels very topical. And I was excited. I know we've talked about AI in here, but that they have decided to invest further in AI growth hubs and to really tackle, I think, or to lean into that idea of how do we support the UK in evolving and developing our capability there, because it's essential to our, I think, economic growth and to our standing in the world, and therefore all of us as citizens here. So I'm happy to see that. So that was one good news piece I thought out of there. But then I'll tell you something small I saw recently, which sounds small, but it's just this idea of, again, brands being and companies being just really great at making someone's day. They're, in a way that's really consistent with themselves. So I saw that Nike created this like soup pop-up outside a really popular running district in China. And it's just ahead of the national games. And what they did was on a typical path, they've popped up this like soup and all these things you can do to which is a very traditional thing that runners in China would ingest to give energy on that journey. And they've done it in a really kind of brand fun way, but also just, surprise and delight to people on this path. And just seeing some of the stories of connectivity and feeling like fueled and supported by the people that discovered this pop-up on the way. It's just, again, it's like what your neighbors would do, what your community would do. It's just supporting you in something that you believe is important to you. And it fits for Nike to do that. So I quite liked the way that they did that in a really authentic, homegrown way. And if every brand that was out there and every business that was out there was doing things like that on a regular basis, I think we'd all feel a lot more powered and cared for, and connected to the thing we buy. And
well, I think the thing is that I think that some of those sort of things, there's pressure on marketeers, given that and this final thought, I guess, for the end of the podcast is that in this world of AI assisted or AI powered search, as it were, and how brands are losing or having to navigate kind of a new environment, a new landscape to make sure that they can maintain visibility or can achieve visibility. That some of the old rules of marketing and branding and connection and things are starting to become more important. And actually it's less digital, less AI, and more real, in-person type stuff. And I think that brands like Nike have always been about, they embrace technology and things, but they're all about their customers and what they're allowing, helping the customers do what they need to do in the places they need to do. So almost like going to them and trying to engage with them makes sense. And I can envisage that you'll see more brands trying to do stuff like that to build that connection, to build that memorability, to help them stand out, because it's a noisy world out there, particularly in the digital space. And so I applaud kind of that. And that's kind of nice. It's nice to hear.
Wonderful.
So, Deborah, that's all I have for you today. I just want to say thank you for sharing your time and your insight and your expertise, and congratulations on the journey so far with Samsung UK and Ireland. Long may it continue. And just to say, one final thing. Thank you so much for sharing some time with me today. It's been great.
Thank you, Adrian. It's been absolutely delightful.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.